Welcome into Other People's Shoes, the podcast where listeners get to step into the lives of others and see the world through their shoes. Your host, Neil Matthews, is a seasoned interviewer who has a natural talent for empathizing with his guests and drawing out their unique perspectives. Through a combination of storytelling and insightful questioning, Other People's Shoes explores the lives of a diverse range of guests, from everyday people to celebrities and thought leaders. With a warm and welcoming style, Neil creates a safe and supportive space for his guests to share their stories, while also challenging listeners to broaden their perspective and think more deeply about the world around them. So tune in to Other People's Shoes with Neil Matthews and get ready to step into other people's shoes.
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. I'm your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for choosing to hit play today. Listen, you could have chosen so many other things to do right now. How long is that honey-do list at home? Mine seems to ever be growing, but recently, this is kind of fun. You guys know this because Elizabeth was on the show recently, a while back. Season finale was the end of that Footprint series that we did. She said to me that we could finally pay for somebody to take care of our yard work. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I absolutely hate doing yard work. So she said the lawn guy was cheaper than marriage counseling. So I'll let that just sit on the table. So I don't know how this relates to yard work, but maybe because he is such a hard working fella, he is one guy that I've always respected in my church, even though I kind of have to look down to him. And it's only because his height. That's it. Otherwise, he really is larger than life in my life because he's been such a gleaming and glowing example of truly what it is like to live mask-free. And I'm not talking the COVID mask. I'm talking about the mask that we've been hiding behind, that we've been talking about for a good while now. So help me welcome him, my good friend, Wes. Wes, how are you today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Excited. First off, I'm always excited when someone says yes. I mean, I don't care if you're a Joe Public kind of guy or if you're the latest rap album guy. I just get a tickled pink when someone finally says that three-letter word, Y-E-S. In my living room. We're doing it from my living room. It's fun.
It's comfy. It's nice.
The furniture, right? I didn't pick it out. Not one bit. We used to have our pillows actually were kind of a diamond argyle shape. I don't know what happened to those. We've now gone to the gray, softer pillows.
It's out of your hands.
It is. There are certain things you just have to say, and I know you're newly married. You've already discovered that. It's sometimes just good to be out of your hands, right?
Yeah, my style is relegated to shoes I wear sometimes.
Do you still get to pick those out?
Every once in a while.
Okay. And you're a new dad on top of that. I want to acknowledge that as well. So what is harder, new dad or new husband?
New husband.
Why?
I think dad, and I was super anti-kid, but new dad, it just, man, when you have him, it just a natural thing happens. At least it did for me. Big natural thing where it's just, okay, this is your kid, and you kick into this primal defend mode, and it's just the greatest thing.
Now, I remember one time you coming to church, your kid had Jordans on, and I wanted to beat him up for them. But apparently beating up a toddler for his Jordans is not acceptable, socially acceptable.
His Jordans that were my Jordans. So now it's like,
oh,
they kind of
snap.
Yeah, they kind of might have to get passed down, or who knows, or
man,
one of my brothers might have gotten dibs on them for their future kid.
I think you should put them on eBay, and there could be a bidding war between me and your brother. And then the money raised could be college fund for your son.
You know, if the economy goes how it's going, that might happen.
So, Wes, I love to lead off every show with this question, and that's this. What size shoes, speaking of shoes, what size shoes do you wear?
9.5.
You didn't even hesitate. Like, you know it.
Yeah.
Some guys, have come on and they don't know their shoe size.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get that.
A lot of work boots.
And that's what's going to be my next question. Is there a style or brand that you like more than another?
Oh, it's Romeo's for work. I'm in and out of houses a lot, so they got to slip on and off, and also got to be able to dig with a shovel. So, yeah, that's the kind of the big one.
Romeo's. Those are shoes I have not gotten behind. Nice. And he's wearing them right now. Could you see me ever in a pair of Romeo's, in your opinion?
No, only if you were doing yard work, and I don't think those two things are going to happen. So, no.
I don't even think I own a pair of Wranglers. So I'm really not fitting into this whole Western, I should say cowboy type people wear the Romeo's. I have seen that.
For a cowboy, it's casual. For a blue collar worker, it's work. This would be John Wayne casual, I think.
John Wayne Casual. I like it. Marion was his first name, by the way. When I'm thinking about people, again, as I start seasons, I always kind of in my mind, start brainstorming who should I go after, who is kind of fitting into this category, if you will. Truly, really rising to the top in my mind because I thought, man, I've heard bits and pieces of it. It's almost like this really amazing story. I've only heard bits and pieces of it, fragments of it, but it got me enough, almost like a chapter book, to keep reading to the next chapter. Like each section I would get to, I was like, I need to know more about that. I need to know more about that. So for you, what was the mask that you wore for so long that you finally was like, you know what? I can't continue to have this facade, if you will. I can't continue to do that any longer. And then maybe talk about why you got rid of it.
I've never really saw it as a mask. I think it was just almost a double life, a very uneven yoke, definitely serving the two different masters. And you can't serve them both. When life got to a certain point where, marriage, bringing someone close in where you can't hide anymore, and then baby on the way, big responsibilities, that's when it was too heavy. The yoke was too heavy on the one side, and big change had to happen.
So what was that yoke for you?
Oh, it was alcohol and marijuana, big time, just a daily thing.
I never saw the appeal. I never saw that. Now, alcohol, on the other hand, different animal. I have a bigger history with that. When I was kind of wanting to get to the point of drunkenness, which faith-based people, Christian people, Bible's against that. But man, I sure as heck loved it when I would get drunk. Almost let me forget about my worries and my problems. And it was almost like a zippity-doo-dah-day kind of day. In those moments, I know I chose alcohol for that reason because whatever it was I was dealing with, I didn't want to deal with that. Was that true for you? And if not, how was it different?
Yeah, it starts out as something small. For me, it was a young age. It was probably junior year or maybe even sophomore year of drinking with the guys. And then it turns into kind of a game of drinking on lunch break and sneaking in on the weekends. And, it starts as that. And then it grows into something deeper as you don't realize that you're slipping into addiction.
How does the weed play a role in that?
Oh, weed was introduced probably freshman year. And it was just wanting to be cool, wanting to be different, curiosity pulling you in. And it's pretty cliche for around these parts of Southern Oregon and Northern California area it's all around. Culture is open arms. It's not a hard gang to join. The hippie gang and the pot smoking gang. And it just started out small and quickly became an everyday thing.
So what did those two things do for you that made you want to continue to do them?
An easy lifestyle. It was always a cliche after school special thing you think smoking pot makes you cool? And it was like, yeah, I do. I have friends and I have a culture, and Jimi Hendrix is smoking pot, man. I'm just like Jimi Hendrix.
What a role model, right?
When you don't know.
You don't know, I guess.
You don't know.
Have you ever calculated how much money you spent on maybe combined or separately?
Oh, I've thought a lot about it. It's probably a painful amount. Still in your addiction, you think about how much you've smoked, how much you've drank, and it's a funny thought. And then as you're getting out of it, you start thinking about the money. I could probably be living in $1 million house with all I've wasted.
And you always think about not only money, because money's one thing, but time. I mean, money, I feel like we get back again in some respects, right? We can earn it, we can work hard, we can, get money back. But time feels like something we can never get back again. Once it's gone, it's gone. That's it. Do you ever think about those moments that you were doing it and all that time
there's
in your mind?
years.
Would you say wasted or I don't know?
Oh, massively wasted. And first coming out of the addiction, it made me who I am. For me, when you really get out, you go, no, it just wasted. It was a wasted time. Being with a bad girlfriend, that held you back or something. You'll never get that time back, and it's wasted potential.
How much time do you think you wasted in it?
Years and years and years. I mean, it was an everyday thing I can safely say, from the age of 17 to 25, 24. And the funny thing about at least weed is you think you're running on all cylinders. You really do, because your tolerance goes up, and then you get off it and you realize you weren't running on all cylinders.
So I know you come from a really amazing family. Like your mom is probably one of my favorite people at church. I'm not just saying that because she's my room leader, but I'm just saying that because she is so amazing. And your dad, I've never not been around your dad and walked away not laughing in some respects. I mean, he's just so stinking funny. I just love your dad as well. I feel like you came from this great, amazing family and yet you still made, in your mind, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, so if I am, tell me, but you still made these kind of poor choices. Why do you think that was?
A lot of kids growing up, friends had tough family lives, and I would always say, I had to leave it to Beaver family. And I would say that all growing up, and I'd never had one complaint. I never saw my dad drink a beer. I never saw my mom. Yeah, it was just a need and a want to be accepted, a want to be popular, a want to have something of my own, a desire to be rebellious. Growing up watching Tombstone every weekend, Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday is so cool, and he is just wasted. It's just a terrible idol to have, but it was something that those types of characters, I'm sure there's other aspects to it that drove me there, but it was just a want to be cool, a want to be accepted.
Do you feel like you were lacking in that in some respects coming out of your family? I mean, I again, amazing family, but still you could feel, even if you came from the best of the best family, you still could maybe struggle with finding your place in it.
It was just getting wrapped up in the wrong crowd and not having the self-confidence to go, no, I'm not gonna. I look back and go, man, if you'd just been friends with that guy rather than that guy, where would your life have gone? Just being so easily influenced at it. Because I didn't go to public school until probably the third grade, and it was instantly like, who wants to be friends? I will follow them wherever they want to go. And so I look back a lot and go, man, if you'd just been friends with somebody else, what would have happened?
Worst moment drinking was what?
There's a lot. Boy, there's a lot. Worst moment drinking, painful times. So many family get-togethers. Not horrifically ruined, pretty ruined. I went to a country music festival after a bad breakup with family. Should have known. I drove up. I was just devastated. First heartbreak. Really embarrassing. And drove up north to like the Salem area. Oh, music festival, you got to come up. And just started drinking beers on an empty stomach. Very blacked out, made a horrible fool of myself, and got severely beaten up. I mean, so beaten up, if you have a black eye and you go sit down at a Denny's, the waitress will make a joke at you. I was so beat up. We went to a Chinese food place. The waitress looked away. I mean, she looked away. That was pretty bad. I mean, I've had a really bad DUI wreck. I mean, there's a lot of times.
So do you feel like weed was worse than the alcohol addiction, or were they equal?
Yeah, I mean, they went hand in hand. I mean, I could probably smoke and not drink, but there was no way I was drinking and not smoking. There was a lot of times of trying, of needing to pass a drug test and going, all right, I'm just going to have some beers. Boy, you get 2 beers in me, especially when the dispensaries opened up. It's right down the corner. I'm drinking and driving and going. It was never within walking distance. So the weed one was so ingrained, so long, just so many years of it being a habit. Who knows what that does to the brain, but it was just ingrained. I would say it was kind of harder to kick. The alcohol was kind of a different, kind of a harsher addiction, but the weed was just lingering.
I've heard people say this, gateway drug. Usually you start with that and then you go harder and harder and harder because it becomes not hard enough, I've heard people say. Is that true in your case, or do you feel like, hey, weed was all I wanted to do and that was it? I stopped myself from doing X, Y, maybe Z.
It's the gateway if you want to push the envelope. And it was also the one that kind of clicked with me most, so it stuck around. Pain pills. I didn't like being that tired, grumpy, and nauseous, so thank God that just didn't latch onto me. But it was a gateway because I wanted to push the limit, and you're starting small and you move up to other stuff, and maybe it hangs on and maybe it's too expensive. Around these parts, you can get it for, pot for free all day long, especially if you're in the right crowd.
I look at you now and I can't picture that. Hardworking, family guy, caring about your life and where it's going. Would the West right now recognize the West of, like, say, 10 years ago or even 15 years ago?
Man, he feels one step away. Feels just one step away. I felt like I could put on a pretty good act. You might say put on the mask when it was time to play ball and act, go to church or go to a family function. And maybe I didn't. I'm sure there were people that could see through. He doesn't feel that far away.
So what keeps you on that path to not go back to the old way of life?
Coming up on 2 years of 100% sobriety, and the way that this time came about, I feel like a whole new person in that, and having the responsibility of kids is a big one. This time around was just different. And now I look back and go, it just seems impossible to go back to that, how far I've come.
Why was this time so different in your mind?
Well, this time I just got married and baby on the way, and I was cooking for rock bottom again. I was drinking and driving a lot, drinking on the job, smoking on the job, sneaking around the house drinking, and knew you're headed for another rock bottom. Because that's how it was for me. It would start small and slowly build up, and usually it would end with ruined family occasion or blackout session on the town. That would be pretty embarrassing, and then the roller coaster would go down the hill and it would slow down. But I knew I was cooking for a rock bottom, and my wife had this amazing ability to know when I drank anything at all. I think it was Holy Spirit probably just gave her that ability to really see. I'd kind of got caught drinking and driving. I think I drove her and the kid to Mexican food, and she could tell. And whew, she was mad, and she was like, all right, well, I didn't sign up for this. And I didn't mean for her to sign up for it. I thought I was going to have it all under control. And she had said, you know, you need to do something. I don't know what it is, but you got to do it. So I'd reached out for a little bit of help, and a great friend at church had pointed me to a recovery center, just kind of to do an intake and just talk to me, see what's going on. And they had multiple levels of help. So I went and talked to them, and to appease the wife, you know, I had to do something. Even though quitting felt impossible to me, I had to do something just to get her off my back was the original thing. Went to them. Really cool rock recovery in Medford, really cool guys. My baby was due in 4 months. And I said, there's no way I'm going to be in a hospital room and I'm not going to have alcohol in there, edibles or something. I'm like, there's no way. I can't do it. The stress, the lack of ability to deal with emotions was just, I knew it was going to be too much. Struggled. And they said, well, you know, you're not far off. You're right there. We've seen worse, which I'm sure they had seen a lot worse. And I said, okay. And we kind of did an intake, and they paired me up with a sobriety coach, and kind of like, okay, we'll do this a little bit. Still kind of struggling to get on track for the first few weeks. I was in church. I mean, we were broke. I don't know how I could manage to drink and smoke. Maybe that was the enemy providing a little coin in my pocket just to drag me to the bottom. We were just broke. We had no money. And being raised, you know, in a great Christian home, you can't test God unless it's like finances. And it was during prayer for communion, and I said, you know, God, I really need you to come through. You got to come through for me. So if I slip up, you got to make it hurt. It was like a subconscious prayer, because I prayed it and I said, why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. But I had the faith that he was going to come through. So it was kind of two-part. It was like, he's going to come through for me, but also, man, you slip up, I don't know what's going to happen. What could it be? Are you going to get pulled over drunk for the 1,000th time you drove drunk? It was a lot, and it was heavy, but I had to have him come through that and sobriety coach. So then the next time telling my sobriety coach that, you know, he could tell there was a change. And he goes, all right, you know, they had asked me if I wanted to do random UAs. And I said, I don't want to, so I will, just to kind of help. That was the big change, was really holding myself accountable to God. Because I'd had accountability people in the past, people I love and respect, and it would work for like a week. And then it was like, well, oops, I'll just lie to you. It's easy to do. And so the big change was just holding myself accountable to God. And that got me through.
What do you hope your son learns from you?
Scares me, because there was nothing anybody was going to tell me to make me quit when you're in that young, dumb age. There was nothing anyone could tell me to slow down driving. How am I going to get him to slow down driving? I just hope he learns discipline, better role model.
Do you think you could be a role model that he would want to follow after?
Yeah, it's the goal. It's the goal. No, he's only 1.5. I got lots of time to be that role model. At least I think I do. Time flies.
I would just think, Elizabeth and I don't have a son. It's hard to be a role model for a girl. It would be even harder to be a role model for a son. And so I'm thankful that God didn't give me a son, because, man, I think his life would be tough. What you're hoping that he can glean from you and really take in, that he sees that you do really well. Even though you've had this, you do a lot very well. So what do you hope you can model for him that maybe he can truly follow after?
Just work ethic and honesty. I know I was raised with that in our family. It was just work hard and just be honest. Because lying, you're never ever really going to get away with it. It will come out, or there will be repercussions no matter what. And I think that's a really true thing.
Was there anybody that was extremely hard to lie to, or was everyone kind of about the same, on the same level?
I would always be pretty honest with my mom, because we had this thing where she would say, you just always be honest. She wouldn't throw the book at me right away. So there was times of, you know, I have a time where I was doing LSD and I thought I was down from all night of doing it, kind of an 8 to 10 to 12 hour thing. I thought I was good. I was at a buddy's house and I come home early in the morning and I open the front door and I feel the mask just drop, and who knows what my face looked like. And she's standing in the living room and she says, what is wrong with you? And I said, I'm just really high. And she's like, okay. And I went to my room. I'd always be really honest with her. I think outside of that, everybody was pretty much the same. I could lie to anybody, and everyone was just on the same level.
Have you allowed yourself in any way to think, if you didn't stop 2 years ago, what life would look like?
That would be bad. I'd probably just be really bad. I was pretty honest with Jamie, my wife, right off the bat. You know, she'd ask me, what do you struggle with? You know, because she's being a great Christian gal, you know, she knew everyone's
that seems
got
like
something.
a loaded question.
Yeah. And I screwed up, kind of. Because I told her. So I think, what would happen if I didn't? If I told her, yeah, I like to have a beer every once in a while. Tried really hard to keep the rest under wraps. Where would we be today? Because it wouldn't be pretty. It would look a lot different. Just had a conversation about it a few weeks ago after leaving something where a lot of people were drinking. I think, boy, we'd probably be fighting right now. I wouldn't have wanted to leave, or it just wouldn't be good. And God's come through so big for me. That's the other thing is I maintain sobriety, but he came through too in such a big way, just financially.
Tell me about that.
You know, just little things. He just came through big, whether it was side work or I look back now and just think it was just, I don't want to say a smooth ride. He just came through to where it was never, it just kept me from screwing up because I knew, man, I don't know, we got to keep this ride going.
Have there ever been times you wanted to go back in this last 2 years?
First 3 months are kind of pulling teeth. It's on your mind a lot, at least for me. 6 months, you're doing pretty good. 9 months, you're on cruise control. And then after 1 year of just 100%, I could really look back and kind of reflect. And 1 year ahead, I went, wow, 1 year, wow. And I could look back and realize how great it was to hit the 1 year. And no, I haven't really. And it scares me to kind of say that because you hear people having a relapse, 8, 6, 10 years later. So I try to not rest on that. As of now, no, not at all. I see people who are just wasted and I just go, what's going on? I had a family member I really respect and like who was in town and they were wasted. And I was looking forward to visiting with them. So I show up to my mom's house and they're trashed. And I was disappointed because I didn't get a visit with them. I didn't want to visit with this drunk person. And I thought, is that how I was? People wanted to see me, but they couldn't see me because I was this wasted person, this joke. It's just gross.
First off, Wes, I want to acknowledge what you're saying because it's so mind-boggling to me that, again, going back to this word wasted, that people have wasted, and you yourself included in those people, have wasted so much of your life to this. It's just like any other addiction in life. What we're feeding, what we're worshiping. You used the word idol earlier, bowing down to that idol. And I know you said, God's come through in amazing ways and in very unique ways and small ways. It's never been like this grandiose thing. It's just kind of in the little bit and here and there. And if there's young people out there listening right now, again, sometimes we do. I don't know who really listens from time to time. But if there's somebody right now who's, let's say, a sophomore, junior, kind of in that middle high school years, and they're getting pressured and they're getting pushed and you should come join the party. You don't want to have FOMO. You don't want to be left out. What would be your counsel to them?
Man, find those people that have never done that. There's so many cool, like now that I'm sober and I look and I see people who aren't Christians but are like celebrities who are sober now. I go, okay, well, man, he's doing it. I can do it. There's so many cool people out there. You don't have to do that. There's, getting sober for me, it was every thought I had was my thought, not maybe pot or not maybe alcohol. It's just, man, you just don't have to do that. You're so yourself if you're just yourself, if you're sober. Find those people that are cool that aren't doing that.
Yeah, again, I think there's so many times we think we're missing out somehow. We're not going to be accepted. We're not going to be part of it. And I think that's some great advice, is that there are some really cool people out there. There are some really amazing people out there. Sometimes it may take a little more time to find them. They are out there. I like that a lot, actually. Is there anybody that you hurt deeply, that you really feel like, you know what, I wish I could have had that moment back to maybe amend a fence or to do something like that, or all the fences mended and everybody's good?
Yeah, it was just hurtful to my family to see me like that. I'm the oldest. I got 2 younger brothers and an older sister. So I'm the oldest boy, and my brothers are so cool because they still see me as like, I never lost their respect. They still saw me like I still kind of held my position. That's how they treat me, as like, no. And maybe that's just because I got sober. My mom is so forgiving. Really just, it sucks to have your family see you like that. It sucked to be a mess at my brother's wedding. Like a mess. It's been mended. That's just, man, part of having just the coolest family.
I would echo that. You do have a cool family. So did you quit both at the same time, the weed and the alcohol, or were there separate entities?
Oh yeah, no, I quit both. I mean, that was part of the prayer, was like, no slipping up, just no slip ups. So yeah, it was both.
That's got to be tough because you can't throw a rock in this town without hitting a dispensary.
It's ridiculous. I don't know how they stay open.
I don't either, because I'm trying to figure out the math. Like, what's it cost to run that building? What's it cost to rent that building? What's it cost to turn the lights on that building? There's so many of them. How do they sustain it? I really don't know. I don't necessarily care to know because I'm not into that.
Back in the day,
yeah.
I think it was like $10 a gram was a good deal. And I probably paid, we were talking about how much money I've wasted. And I probably paid bonkers amounts more than that. And now you drive by and they got the signs where it's like $1 a gram or like $40 an ounce. And I'm like, you can't be making money on that. How are you making money? Because we know it's just like any other crop. You got people, there's multiple steps getting it there. It's bonkers. I don't know how they stay open.
Curious about that too in other communities. I don't travel a ton outside of Southern Oregon, Northern California, and really outside of Oregon too much. I'm wondering, and my brother-in-law and I are actually going to North Carolina in November, which I'm really excited about. Curious about like other states, other communities, that are they in the same, like, again, throw a rock, hit a stand? I just am blown away by how many we have per capita. It's insane. It is truly insane to me. Well, Wes, you talk about your faith journey. Do you ever really feel like God left you? The famous verse, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Did you ever feel in any way forsaken by him?
No, my journey was like super cliche prodigal son. I never really lost my faith. Even growing up, being in that culture, still attended church, to appease the parents, and still had a belief. And my hippie friends knew that. And even in my really hard times, what would be like 7 or 8 years ago, no, I mean, I never felt abandoned. I felt he was always right there just saying, you done? You done yet?
Well, that's interesting. So I'm wondering about some of your friends back then, and we'll say very loosely friends. Maybe friends wouldn't do that to friends. Would any of those friends recognize the Wes of right now?
Probably not. No,
Why is that?
Man, sobriety's just granted me with such a clear head and a true confidence and a realness. It's weird to think after using something like a substance like that every day, they're not your thoughts anymore. It's not really you. So now it's really me. I do think I'm a lot different. It's caused me to mature in a lot of ways and carry myself in a different way. So I don't think they would really, but it's also been a long time since I've seen those friends.
Bump into one of them on a job site or, wherever your journeys take you. And they're like, man, come on, come join us again. Man, we've missed you. There's so much to give up to go back to that, I would imagine.
Oh, yeah, I'd never give it up. And it amazes me that people can quit and go back. Like, people are like, yeah, I took a year off drinking, then I went back. Go, what? Why? Like, don't you feel how good it feels? Why would you go back?
I think, again, because they feel like they're missing something.
Yeah.
That's become such a part of who they are, and that's their DNA. And I'm so grateful that has not been your DNA, and that's not who you are. Of course, to me, it still sounds like uber scary. Like, what were you thinking driving drunk?
Yeah, I mean, you will, it's super true that when you're drinking, it lowers your inhibitions, your decision making. Man, it's frightening. I would always say, driving drunk is like Russian roulette, and I've pulled the trigger thousands of times. And I worry about people I know that drink and drive. I have friends and acquaintances and family members that road sodas, road beers. And it's like, yeah, what if someone hits you? Like, you don't even have to hit them. They hit you. So you get pulled over, cop smells beer. Whoop, hey, can I have you step out? Like, oh, really scary.
The roadside testings?
Like, from getting pulled over?
Yeah.
No, my DUI was driving a car off a hill. My Subaru went trunk over hood. The state trooper says probably 4 times. And I was in the hospital. So they did a breathalyzer in the hospital. I didn't have to do the old roadside sobriety.
Do you remember what you blew?
They did it quite a ways after. It was only 0.09. I don't think I was blacked out drunk, but I was just drunk enough, kind of swerved off the road. I was on the back roads of Montana, and it was notoriously bad cell service. Standing across from somebody, you couldn't send a text message. Really bad. And I was driving in the worst area, and my phone rang, and I picked it up and answered it, and I swerved off the road, dropped the phone, swerved back into the road, and way overcorrected because I had that sporty Subaru. And it went from pointing on the right side of the road to completely pointing to the left side of the road. Yeah, next thing I know, I came to standing on the side of the road, and a volunteer firefighter was there telling me not to go anywhere.
So you obviously get out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, before you got out, what you were feeling when you were in the car still or anything?
Nope. I think the airbag had completely burned one side of my face, and judging from the soreness the next day, it must have just kind of rocked me. Driving right off and probably going trunk first, and airbag probably knocked me out pretty hard. But I don't remember anything. Once I started going off the hill.
And that wasn't the wake-up call to stop?
Nope, that wasn't it. I mean, the cop didn't even book me because there was 2 city cops in the hospital with me who were way too nice. They were way too nice. They could have been total dicks. And they were like, hey, bud, yeah. And I said, hey, am I going to jail? They said, yeah, you're going to jail. They said, we're just waiting on the state trooper to come. She was looking at the accident. So when she gets here, she'll probably book you and your boss. I was on a job. Your boss will come bail you out. And she showed up and said, we don't see people walk away from wrecks like that. You need to go home and lay down, and didn't book me. I went to court in Idaho because I was right on the border doing my plea deal, blah, 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 the whole thing. And the judge starts to rattle off, okay, time served, 1 day. And my lawyer leans over and goes, did you ever get booked? And I said, no. And he said, objection, Your Honor, my client never got booked. And she looked at me and said, you need to go get fingerprint. I said, okay, so you want me to go right now? She said, you leave this courthouse and and go get fingerprinted or you are going to jail. Like, it blew minds that I didn't get booked, but it was just such a terrible accident. And they said, yeah, she said, you need to go home and lay down. And she was right. I was hurting pretty bad the next day.
I can't even imagine standing on the side of the road, volunteer fireman comes up to you and, hey man, don't go anywhere. What you must have looked like even afterwards.
It knocked my shoes off. I wasn't wearing shoes.
So when you make the call home, how does that go?
So I called my mom. I said, I'm okay. And then, which is like halfway nice to say. Start out, hey, I'm okay. But like, I got in a car wreck and I got a DUI and there's tears and her being devastated. And it's a rough phone call.
You ever see the pictures?
Of the car?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of in shock the next day. They had pulled the car out, taken it to a tow yard in Idaho. And I was kind of in shock because I took pictures in front of it. They gave me the day off work. We were working on a dam at the time. Gave me the day off work and one of our engineers had drove me to go get my stuff out of the car. And I took pictures in front of it. And I think I was just in shock. Because then later on the day, I just was like, what were you doing? But it was just like a weird feeling of completely totaled, just a wreck.
I would have thought that would have been the wake-up moment. Okay, something needs to give here. Like, you could have died. You should have died, maybe.
I could have killed someone else.
And that too.
No, I went home. I had a little cabin that I was renting because it was like a 4-month job in Montana. And you either had an RV or you had a little cabin. And there was bottles of booze because we were getting paid a lot of money and there's nothing to do but drink. You're in the middle of nowhere. And I poured some bottles of booze down the sink. And that probably lasted a week. Like, I don't even think it probably lasted a week because there was such a lack of ability to deal with emotions. Didn't have the maturity to work through whatever emotion prompted me to drink, whether it was celebrating or sadness or loneliness.
Have you since figured out what kind of triggers you to want to drink?
Yeah, I mean, until you work through it, it's all those things. A really hard day at work, kind of that weird thought kind of pops up. It's super easy to ignore now, but during those first few months, it was not easy. It was a lot of prayer just to drive past a Minute Market and not pull in and get a beer and chug it really quick before around the corner from my house. Chug it really quick.
So if somebody comes home from work and they're like, man, just had a terrible case of the Mondays, as an example, right? And they're like, you know what? I just want to numb what I'm feeling right now because I'm feeling run down. I'm feeling not appreciated. I'm feeling used and abused and nobody seems to care. And woe is me. I call them Eeyore moments. And they immediately go to a bottle. Do they have a problem in your mind? I know you're not a clinical guy or you can't give, say, medical advice per se. But if that was you or that was a friend, what would you say to them?
I think the difference would be if you come home and there's beers in the fridge and you have a beer versus there's nothing in the house. Maybe it's late and maybe you really should be going to bed, but you make the trip. You go get the booze or whatever it is that's going to substance other than maybe a candy bar or some ice cream. You're making the trip. You're putting the boots on, maybe spending your last dollar. Those are more signs to me of like, hey, you got a problem, dude. Like, let's try working through these emotions.
Because, anger and all those things are just a secondary emotion. I've heard once or twice or
Yeah.
7 times. Who knows? We are involved in a men's group at our church. And I would be willing to put some money down on a table that there's some guys out there that still struggle on some level with either one of these two things, or if not both. What makes you feel free to come out and speak out about this? The easy answer is Jesus. They're still hiding behind that mask. If they're still stuck in that mode of, I can keep this under the radar, no one's going to know, no one's going to see me, it's fine, I got it under control. They're basically lying to themselves and others. What would be your counsel to them?
If you want God to work in your life, my counsel would be to them that there's a whole lot out there waiting. You're just holding back so much more. And a lot of that is, and you could even put it secularly, there's a whole lot of potential in you if you're willing to just put it away. But spiritually, if you're walking with Christ, man, he's got a lot for you, but you got to kick it. And you're not going to see it until you take the step. Like, you can't feel the ocean until you actually go feel the ocean. No matter how hard you try or you think about it, if you want to feel the ocean, you got to go touch it. So if you want God to work in your life, you got to do it. You got to take the step. And he's got big stuff for you.
He's there waiting.
He's waiting. From one prodigal son to another, he's waiting.
So, we have these studies from time to time, like which son do you identify with? You always say the younger son, the one that goes off and squanders everything and comes back.
Not always. I think younger son, because it can be goes off and he squanders, then he comes back and he's welcomed. I feel like I'm still being welcomed. I don't think that's a one-day thing. For me, it's been 2 years of being welcomed. First few months is getting the robe put on you. The next few months is getting the slippers. Next few months is the ring. It's a constant hug.
Powerful stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it. The best. And I appreciate and I applaud your courage.
Well, hey, thanks for having me, man.
Well, guys and gals, kids and campers alike, that is it. That is all. That is our show today. Now listen, I know some of you out there are like, you know what? I love country music. I mean, there's that great song, Papa Top Again. I mean, I'm sure Alan Jackson is talking about Pepsi. You know, Eric Church, big Tar Heels fan, loves to put a drink in my hand. So I want to ask you a question. How do you truly feel about the mask and the facade of alcohol? Does alcohol need to play a part in your life? And if so, what part does it need to play? Does it need to be the main character of your story? Is it a supporting actor? Is it a cameo appearance? Does it make just every now and then visits? Listen, I've had my fair share of it as well, as I mentioned. It's hard. It is a hard road, and it is a tough road. Is it a road that you're willing to step down? And is it a road you're willing to go down? Just a curious question for you as we start to get out of here today. Let me know what you think about this. And the whole marijuana thing per capita, that's truly the epidemic that's going on in this country right now. But tell me yours. I'd love to hear you. OPSpodcast.com is a great place to let me know. You can also let us know on the socials. OPS Podcast Show under Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And until next week, don't ever forget. Remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Thank you so much for listening. And stay tuned till next week when we walk in other people's shoes.